Why, hello folks! Another day, another Helminth build guide. You know, we're going through the list. At the end of this, I'm probably gonna do something for every Warframe. And I tell you, if there's anything this Helminth system has done, is made me up my game. And just made me play so many different Warframes and experiment with them and explore them and figure out like how they work, what they need and what not. It really teaches you a lot about the game. So I recommend everyone to just go dive in there and do stuff with the Helminth, because it really forces you to do your research and like figure out like, oh, this is how this Warframe works. and you can discover like new favorites and stuff that you didn't even know how cool it was until you sort of like start testing it out. So today we have Nova. Nova is a very popular Warframe. She sees a whole lot of use, mostly in defensive missions. Stuff like defense, mobile defense, interception, stuff like that. Because, you know, she has what she's most known for, her number 4 ability, the ability to just slow everything down to a crawl around her, which is nice. It simplifies any single mission you play because everything around you is just moving at a snail's pace. You can just pick them off at your leisure. But that being said, like, she isn't really good for every scenario because she's kind of frail. She's not tanky at all, and that's sort of like what you have to mitigate if you want to play like really, you know, other mission types that require other things. So that's kind of what you want to use in the Helminth system for Nova. You kind of want to figure out how to make her a bit tankier. She's not like a nuke. She's not a super powerful damage dealer with her abilities. And the Helminth system isn't really going to be able to make her be that either. But that's not what she's for. That's not what people use her for. They use her for utility and just being a very nice, you know, part of a squad. But we can fix that. We can fix that, and we can sort of help her out with that. So if you look at like her ability set as it is, her number 4 is what people always gravitate to, like this, like boom, the molecular fission. As you can see, it expands out. Ooh, so big, and everything within this huge area that you create becomes super slow. That's what everyone knows about her. That's like how you know she works. And then she has her number 1, which is one of my favorite abilities. I've put this on a lot of other Warframes because this is what she donates in the Helminth system. Null Star, which is her method of damage reduction. She gets all of these little stars rotating around her, and each one of them gives her like 5% damage reduction. So with this on, she becomes a bit tankier, but not tanky enough. Not by itself. Unfortunately. And then you have the number 2, which is her antimatter drop. Shoot a thing, you can guide it with your targeting reticule. Let's see, it's following my mouse until like it hits something. And then it explodes. And you know, while it's going through the air, you can shoot it and it charges it up. And then when it explodes bigger. And it does radiation damage. So you can use that as a slight crowd control tool. Because radiation makes enemies, you know, attack each other instead of attacking you. And then her number 3 ability, which is the one I replaced, and it's probably the one most people are going to replace, is her mobility skill, the Wormhole, which opens up a portal that she can jump through to, like, quickly move forward. It's a bit janky, it's a bit clunky to use. And most people don't probably use that all that much with Nova. If you really like the Wormhole, you could probably replace the antimatter drop instead, her number 2 ability. Her number 1 and her number 4 are the ones you can't touch. So here's what I've done. I've infused her with Hildren's Pillage. Yes, I know. Pillage is super popular as a Helminth infusion. It goes on pretty much everything. Like, Pillage is actually what people thought... Well, what some people thought before the Helminth system came out would be like the end-all, be-all ability. Like, people said it was like, oh, it's gonna be Roar. Put Roar on everything and you're fine. Put Warcry on everything and you're fine. No. No, it's not. It's Pillage. Put Pillage and everything and you're fine. That being said, you still have to build around Pillage, and not everyone is going to be able to make use of it in a great way because it doesn't work with how you normally build them. But that's fine, because Nova actually has... Anything that wants Nullstar pretty much also wants Pillage. Because you want for Pillage to work the way you want it to, you want a Warframe that has a lot of duration and a decent amount of strength. That's basically it. And you want to be able to spam it, so you either want a large energy pool or a whole lot of efficiency. Now, what Pillage does is it drains enemies' shields and armor. It strips them of their armor, and it gives them back to you as shields. Which is very nice. You can give yourself overshields as well. You can use this to restore shield gates if you've lost those. You can like use it as an sort of an invulnerability trick. But that's good because it also strips you of negative status effects. That shores up a lot of Nova's weaknesses. Before this, Nova didn't really have a way of removing negative status effects, and she didn't really have a good way of dealing with like heavily armored units either, because you know she can't do damage all that well. And this sort of clears up all of that. So how this works now is I'm gonna show you. Let's chuck up these corrupted heavy gunners right here, right? Boom. Now, if I just plonk down my antimatter drop... Oh yeah, I'm gonna activate my damage reduction as well. Now, let's see, I was standing a bit too far away, but if we get closer and do it, boom. Sorry, not antimatter drop. My molecular fission. I'm pressing the wrong button. I'm pillaging. Haha. No, but here. These guys are gonna get real slow. They're gonna get really, really slow. Super slow. Can't do much of anything. Which is nice. So you can see how efficient this can be. Now, I want you to notice when I cast this, that it shows a little duration there in the bottom there. That's not actually the duration of the effect. That's a different thing. If you build for as much duration as I have, like this effect lasts for like a minute and a half or something. So these guys are gonna be, they're gonna be slow. They're gonna be slow for quite some time, which is very nice. Now, what you can do, obviously, is you can use your gun, you can shoot people and whatnot. But you can also go in and melee them, which is also nice. I'm using a saw with Exodia Hunt, so I'm sucking enemies in as I'm meleeing them. And I want you to notice that my null star in the bottom here, it's actually not depleting, it's recharging itself. Otherwise, when you get close to enemies, it fires off like little particles of itself and you lose some of your damage reduction. But how this works, there's some ability synergy here. In that your number 4 ability, people who have been primed and become slowed, you can actually equip an augment, which is a very important augment for Nova. Here, called molecular fission, which makes it so that when enemies who are primed, who are slowed down and they're killed, you can restore null star charges and generate additional ones. Now, since I have such low range, these particles are only ever going to break off on enemies that are like 4 meters away. They're not going to break off and hit enemies that are further away than that. Which means that if I'm in melee range, it's fine. Like, even though there are enemies close by that is going to like shoot off some of these damage reduction thingies, not enough are going to fire away. And when I'm killing enemies, I'm restoring enough to where I'll just recharge it. So even though I'm using a melee build for this with Pillage, I am actually constantly gonna be at maximum here. Now, if you really want to max this out, you can get it up one spot higher. You can have 18 particles instead of 16 for 90% damage reduction instead of 80. But in that case, you'd have to like chuck Prime Flow, but this build is so energy hungry that I feel like I can't really do that. So I can't really get up to 290 or something duration is what you would need for that. But anyway. This actually works quite well as a melee build. You know, it gets rid of a lot of her weaknesses. Now this is obviously another weakness. Haha. It is knockdowns, which these corrupted heavy gunners can do. So as you can see here, like, I'm clumped up with enemies, but my null stars are not depleting. They are staying at 16. Because as I'm killing enemies, it's recharging itself, which is very nice. If I'm taking damage, I can just, whenever I want to, just plop down a pillage like this. Get back up to full shields. So, you know, we're fine, we're never in danger. Just keep on meleeing these guys. They can't really do anything. Because they are moving at a snail's pace. Oh, look at this guy. Woo! Hey, he managed to knock me down. It's like it's not that dangerous. Too slow. And this works. This works for, like, you know, long steel path endurance runs. And what's nice about it is that, like, the slow effect from the molecular prime, it works perfectly well against acolytes as well. They get slowed down just like any other enemy. So you can actually mow them down pretty quickly, and they can't do a whole lot against you either. You see, yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Let's look at the build itself, shall we? Because that's an important part of it. I am building this for a ton of duration and almost no range at all. And you might think that that would be weird, but the thing about Nova is that, like, pretty much nothing in her abilities scales with range. Like Molecular Prime, for example, the only thing where range matters, it's like the little blast explosion that enemies do when they die. But when it comes to the ability effects itself, and like how big of an area you cover with it, that actually scales with duration and not range, because it's like a pulse that moves out from her. So with this duration, it's going to affect every enemy within like 90 meters, which is quite a long time. And they're going to be slowed down for 1 minute and 20 seconds, which is great. And as you can see, they are slowed down by 75%. In order to get to 75%, you need to be at like at least 155% power strength or something. I have chosen to get a little bit more power strength by using Power Drift, because that makes Pillage a bit better. It drains a bit more shields and armor from enemies. Otherwise, if you feel like you want to build it a bit differently, you could maybe like use an endurance drift to give yourself a little bit more energy. Maybe you can do a speed drift if you want more casting speed, because that's one of the things that can hit you like while you're casting things. But you know, it's pretty optional what you put in the Exila slot. And same with Nullstar. It scales with duration. The more duration, the more energy reduction. Power strength is not important because you're not using this ability for damage. Antimatter drop. Again, you shoot it and it's just gonna move around until it hits ground. So it doesn't scale with range. And of course, Pillage kinda doesn't scale with range either. It says here that it has an initial, or it has a radius, which is very low right now because of my low duration. But that's just like an initial area that it hits. After that, it pulses out. You can even see this in the image. And that pulse scales with duration. So the more duration you have, the larger area it covers. And how it works is that you can either just, you know, shoot it out like this. See? It pulses out, and then you have to wait for the entire duration, and then zoom, back in. And then that's when you get your shields, that's when you get your armor. Or, you can cast it, and then press the cast button again, to get the shields and armor immediately from whatever is in the pulse area that you're in, or that you chose, you know, how large you chose the pulse area to be. So you have a lot of control over that. So yeah, you don't need range at all for this build. You don't need a single bit of it. All you need is a ton of duration and some strength, up to 155. Now, with that being said, these are still very energy-hungry abilities to cast. Molecular Prime, that with even... I have given myself a bit more efficiency, but it still costs 70 energy per cast. Pillage costs 35 energy per cast. And you want to be spamming these ones. You want to be playing them all the time. Nullstar, you're only going to cast it once, and it's going to maintain forever. It's never going to drain down if you play this correctly. Antimatter Drop, you're most likely not going to be using it all that much. You're just going to be rotating these two all the time. Casting them as often as you can. So, I have opted to use a Primed Flow in this build together with an Arcane Energize to make sure that I always have enough energy. So I'm running with a pretty big energy pool, and even with that, a bit more extra efficiency as well. I think you kind of have to do that with this build to make it work, because you have to be able to spam pretty costly abilities. As you can see here, I've also put an Umbral mod in this build, because, yeah, I love Nova. I don't mind putting an Umbral mod, an Umbral Forma in here. But you don't have to. You don't have to. If you instead were to put a normal Forma in the Excel slot and on this slot, you would have enough mod capacity anyway, even without the Umbra Forma. So you can make this build work with just regular Forma as well. That's about it. That's about it for the build in a nutshell. And what's nice about this build is that it's kind of just how you would normally build Nova anyway, if you're going for the slow version. There's also another version of Nova that's built for speeding enemies up, but that's a bit different. So, you don't really have to change a whole lot about how you would build Nova anyway, so she's still gonna work for you in defensive missions, in interception, in defense, in mobile defense, stuff like that. She's gonna work just the same as she always has, except with the tool of Pillage, you can actually also do some pretty aggressive melee stuff with her. So it turns her from a niche Warframe into a generalist Warframe that can do pretty much a little bit of everything. She can still do defense, but now she can also do offense and like these endurance runs with pretty high level enemies, and she can just, you know, pull through it. It still requires some finesse, because even with Pillage and restoring shields, enemies are gonna drain those shields pretty quickly, and she's not tanky, so you gotta like constantly spam these abilities to keep her alive. But hey, if you do, she can go. And with slowdown enemies, especially acolytes, it's so easy. They can't even do anything. They just stand there, and you whack on them with your sword, and they die. It's nice. So yeah, Pillage Nova. It actually takes her to a new level, and lets her be able to do stuff that she couldn't do before, while still being able to do all the same stuff that she used to be able to do. So a pretty solid power-up, I would say. And, you know, that's about it for now. I'll see you again next time with another Warframe.